Alrighty, so setting yourself up either with bolsters or on the floor. You're going to come down onto your back and start with just some basic breaths. So just really lengthening your spine as you come over the bolsters, making sure that you're straight, whether you're on bolsters or not, feeling that the shoulders can melt over the bolsters evenly. Let's have the soles of the feet on the floor, big toe, heel, edge of the foot touching, and then we're going to take our knees apart and together without the soles of the feet lifting. Particularly starting to observe that big toe, edge of the foot, that inner heel, and not allowing that to lift as you open and close your legs. Bring those heels in as close as you can, but not to the point where the heels are starting to lift. And then let those knees come apart to that comfortable distance where the entire sole of the foot remains on the floor. Think about your inner knees dropping a big ball. Think about your outer knees squeezing a big ball. Nice inhale to reach our fingers up towards the sky. Right hand's going to take left elbow, left hand's going to take right elbow. We're going to pull the elbows apart and we're going to start with some shoulder push-ups here. Just moving those arm bones in and out of the shoulder sockets. And then finding that place of extension, no tension, gently rocking your head from side to side, making sure that it's comfortable. Exhale to bring your arms towards your ribs. Inhale to take your arms towards your ears. Exhale to bring your arms towards your ribs. And then with an inhalation, bring your arms towards your ears. And just working with your breath here. Maybe a little tiny lift in the toes. And then take your arms towards your ears, pull your elbows apart, reach your elbows away from the armpits, and lift your elbows up away from the floor. Think about the back rib cage rooting down either into the floor or into the bolster. Let's start with a great big exhale to empty. And then once you're empty, think about filling your lower abdomen, your belly, then your ribs, then your chest, and then emptying your chest, your ribs, and then your belly. Focusing on your body from the inside, focusing on your breath. Let's take 5 more breaths here, just like that. When those 5 breaths are complete, we're going to bring the arms back up and over so that the elbows are right over the shoulders. And then we're going to start with little circles to the right. And trying to keep your back as stable as possible. Still pulling the arm bones out of the shoulder sockets just right so that we don't have any tension, but we're also not allowing those valleys to creep in between the shoulder blades. Gradually letting those elbow circles get bigger. And then gradually letting those elbow circles start to get smaller. Until we have little teeny tiny elbow circles. And then change direction with the circles. Gradually letting those circles get bigger and bigger. And then gradually letting those circles get smaller and smaller until we have teeny, teeny, tiny circles. And then stopping with those circles, we're going to reach the elbows up towards the sky, down towards our knees, up towards the wall behind us, and then we're going to take the elbows to the right. But as we take the elbows to the right, we're going to keep pulling the elbows apart. And then I want you to relax your shoulders away from your ears. I want you to lengthen your ears away from your shoulders. Trying to keep the left side of the ribs on the bolster or on the floor as much as the right. As we pull the elbows apart, we push them down into an imaginary table. We lift them up into an imaginary ceiling. And then we're going to bring the elbows back to center and then over to their own side. Pull the elbows apart, push the elbows down, lift the elbows up. And just breathing here. Feel like you could pull your armpits apart. Feel like you could pull your shoulder blades apart. And then bring your arms back to center. Reach your fingers up towards the sky. Exhale to bring your arms down beside you, palms facing up. Let the shoulders melt towards the floor. Big exhale to empty. And once again, finding those waves of breath up and down the spine. And then keep the action of the foot, so keep that rooting into the big toe edge of the foot, but then allow the feet to come together. So let the soles of the feet clap, but keep the big toes, inner heels rooting just like you did in Creeper. If at any point this feels like too much, then you could put a pillow or a bolster or a block underneath your thighs to support your legs. But pressing the feet to one another. See if you can bring those heels in a little bit closer to your seat. Lift up your butt a little bit, lengthen the flesh of the butt away from the low back. As we root the feet to one another, think about getting rid of the wrinkles in the ankles. Think about lengthening from inner groins to inner knees. Think about those inner knees dropping a ball. Think about the outer knees squeezing a ball. Think about the outer knees coming back towards the outer trochanter, the thicker bit of the outer thigh. Think about those outer trochanter coming to one another and pulling towards the groins, where once again the groins lengthen from inner groin to inner knee to outer knee to outer trochanter. And just seeing if you can keep that line, that circle of energy going. Think about lengthening your quads towards your kneecaps. Think about your kneecaps rooting back onto the backs of the knees, and then visualize sticks pulling the backs of the knees away from one another towards your kneecaps. Nice inhale to reach your fingers up towards the sky. Find that place of extension, no tension. Left hand's gonna grab right elbow, right hand's gonna grab left. We're gonna bang out some shoulder push-ups here. Find that nice spot of extension, no tension. Pull the elbows apart, push the elbows down, lift the elbows up. Really root the back rib cage. See if you can get the front rib cage flush with your abdomen as you exhale to bring your arms towards your belly, and then you inhale to take your arms towards your ears. Exhale, arms towards your belly. Inhale, arms towards your ears. And then just up and down with those arms as you continue to breathe. Exhaling as the arms come down, inhaling as the arms go up. And then let those arms come towards the ears to stay. Pull the elbows apart, reach the elbows away from the armpits, lift the elbows up, root the elbows down. Big exhale to empty, and then once you're empty, belly's gonna fill, ribs are gonna fill, chest is gonna fill. And then you're gonna empty the chest, and then you're gonna empty the ribs, and then you're gonna empty the belly. Focusing on your body from the inside, focusing on your breath. Let's take 10 more breaths here, just like that. And when those 10 breaths are complete, you're going to bring your arms back up over the shoulders, nice and slow, still holding onto the elbows. Let's start with little circles to the left. Really feeling your back rib cage on the floor of the bolster as you start to draw those circles. Gradually letting those circles get bigger if that's available to you, but trying to keep the stability of the spine as you make these circles. Think of the elbows as drawing bullseyes over the shoulder socket. Until eventually those circles are as big as they can be. And then gradually let those circles start to get smaller. And then little tiny circles the other way, gradually letting those circles get bigger and bigger. Until we've got great big circles. And then gradually letting those circles get smaller. Until we have teeny tiny circles. And finding that place of extension, no tension, pull the elbows apart, push them down, lift them up, keep them active. Take the elbows to the right. Without the back moving, without twisting to the right ribs, and then really think armpits lifting up into shoulders, shoulders capping back down onto those armpits. Really root the elbows down, get that nice release through the shoulder. Big breaths here. And then arms coming back to center, let the elbows go the other direction, elbows pushing down, elbows lifting up, elbows pulling apart. Everybody's breathing. And then one more time without the back changing, elbows go all the way to the right. as far as you can without twisting. And then all the way to the left without twisting. And then back to center, reach your fingers up towards the sky. Let those arms come down beside you. Fire up your legs, maybe even use your hands to bring the knees to one another. Once the knees are touching, you're gonna heel toe your feet apart. Baby toe edge of the foot straight, arms beside you, palms up, let the shoulders relax. Once again, big exhale to empty, and then beautiful waves of breath up and down the spine. Focusing on your body from the inside, focusing on your breath. Let's take 10 more breaths here, just like that. And then when those 10 breaths are complete, we're gonna heel toe our feet back to one another. We're gonna pick up our hips, move our hips to the left, roll off to one side, push ourselves up. Let's find our way into tabletop position. And we're gonna use 2 blocks if we have them. We're gonna have one block in front of our thigh, and then we're gonna have the other block underneath our wrist or our forearm, depending on our flexibility. So toes are tucked under. We've got that nice leveling out of the sole of the foot. We've got one block in front of our thighs. We're gonna have our hands so that our wrists are as wide as our shoulders, and we wanna have those hands as far forward as we need to so that we don't feel our wrists. And then we're gonna take the block underneath sort of the forearm on the inside and on the thigh. And then we're lengthening the armpits away from the hip flexors, and then we're gonna give ourselves that kind of boundary or support so that we don't shorten our stance. So we want to keep our spine nice and long. So I've got one block on my right thigh, one block on my left forearm, and again, if I know that my wrists are sensitive and my hand needs to be much further forward, then I just have the block underneath the forearm where it touches. If I can stack my forearms because my wrists are up for that, then I can put the block right up next to my forearm on highest height. The trick here is we're trying to keep the length in the torso, so hip flexors and thighs moving back, arm bones, armpits moving forward, okay? Then we're gonna look at the rotation of the forearms, okay? So we're gonna internally rotate. Notice how the elbows point back. We're gonna externally rotate, which sends a lot of us into hyperextension, so we wanna keep a little bit of a bend in the elbow when we play with that. So internal, external, internal, external, internal, external. And then we want to find kind of halfway between our range. And eventually that means that the elbow crease is at a 45-degree angle with the top of your mat, right? Doesn't have to be today, but see if you can find a little bit more symmetry than you're used to with your elbow creases, so that one's not internally rotating and the other one externally rotating, but they're somewhat similar. And then without moving the blocks, we're gonna exhale to curl the spine, thinking angry kitty. We're gonna inhale, shoulders back, sit bones lift, gazing up. And so those blocks are allowing us to keep the length and the space of the spine instead of allowing it to shorten. We want to think of that extension, no tension through the shoulders. We want to exhale as the head goes down, arching our back like a cat. We want to inhale as the head comes up, letting the belly drop like a cow. So just back and forth with our breath. And then we're going to stop with our spine nice and straight. Again, no valleys. We're going to lengthen the hip flexors away from the armpits. We're going to pick up that right hand. We're going to keep the hand from wrinkling. So no wrinkling this way, no wrinkling thumb to pinky. So as you lift up that hand, really avoid the wrinkles and place your hand on the back of your skull. So not your neck, but the very back of your skull, so that your thumb, if you pointed it straight down, would come into the curvy bit of your neck, your cervical curve. Lift the head up into the hand, push the hand down on the head, reach the elbow away from the armpit, and lift the elbow so there's no wrinkles in the wrist. And then exhale to bring the elbow down so it points to the floor. Inhale to lift the elbow up so that it points straight out to the side. Exhale, elbow down so it points to the floor. Feel the wrinkles on the palm side of the wrist. Inhale to bring the elbow up. So we're just making the elbow go up and down without moving the shoulder, without moving the neck. Not shortening the spine and keeping both sides of the torso equal in length. Now the next time we bring that elbow up, we're going to keep the elbow up, no wrinkles in our wrists. So play with your wrists a little bit so you get rid of all the wrinkles. And then maybe you're going to inhale to lift that shoulder up. Arm is not changing, so we're no longer moving the elbow and we're not moving the neck, and we're just going to bring the elbow up and we're going to bring the elbow down without the neck changing, without shortening on either side of the torso. So we're not moving the blocks. Inhale as you bring the elbow up, exhale as you bring the elbow down. And it might be a very small movement, but we're really avoiding changing the wrist, right? So we just let that movement grow if that's available to us, but we're not moving those blocks. And it's going to be annoying because you're going to want to move those blocks, but the trick here is to keep the torso long. Next time we come up, we're going to hold that elbow up, head pushes into hand, hand pushes into head. Everybody's breathing. Nobody should ever feel their left wrist. If you do, move your hand further forward or put your hand on a block. And then elbow comes down, hand comes down, find your fingers, find your palms, good stuff. Move your blocks out to the side, bring your seat towards your feet. Lengthen out those arms in front of you, really move your hip flexors away from your wrists, and then either staying here in a puppy pose with your knees on the floor and lengthen your spine here, or making your way into a down dog if that's your preference. Little mini bend in the knees, take your hip flexors back. Imagine your sit bones are pushing into a wall and you're lifting those sit bones up a wall. Now, whether you're in a down dog or whether you're in a puppy, I want you to find that same sensation of lifting your arm bones up away from your thighs like we did in the previous posture, like we did in the tabletop. So it's like your arm bones are trying to lift away from the floor and your hip flexors are moving away from your wrists. Let's take 10 more breaths here. And then when those 10 breaths are complete for you, we're going to come back into tabletop position. This time the block is going to come to the left thigh and the right wrist. Right, and so finding the right placement for your hand. You, again, if you feel your wrist, you move your hand further away from you, and then creating that boundary so that you don't move on that right side. Lengthen the armpits away from the hip flexors. Find your fingers, find your palms, and then with a little bend in the elbows, let's play with rotation. Let's think internal, external rotation. And if you're having a hard time rotating those arms, then move your arms further forward. Give yourself less of a stretch so that you might be able to find a little bit more movement. And then finding that kind of in between, seeing if you can get those arms a little bit more symmetrical, get those elbows a little more symmetrical than you normally do. Move your thighs and your arms away from one another, like you're trying to lengthen out the spine, like the spine's an accordion and the two ends come away from one another. We're then going to lift up that left hand. Check out, there's no wrinkles. Notice where you tend to wrinkle and notice which movement you have to do to not wrinkle. And then bring your hand to the back of the skull. Hand is going to push down on the head. Head is going to lift up into the hand. And if you were going to point your thumb down your spine, the thumb would be on the cervical curve, but the hand would be on the back of the skull so that the gaze is straight down and the neck remains neutral. Reach your elbow out to the side. Lift your armpit up and pull your legs and your arms away from one another, and then just move the elbow to start with. Inhale to bring the elbow up, exhale to bring the elbow down. Neck being solid, spine being nice and straight. And then bring that elbow up. To keep that elbow up, lengthen the two sides of the torso. And then lift the whole shoulder up. This time, wrist not changing, elbow not moving. This time, the shoulder's moving, but the neck is not moving. And then bring that whole shoulder down and the elbow will follow. No wrinkles. Inhale to bring that whole shoulder up and exhale to bring that whole shoulder down. But as we do this, we're thinking about lengthening the two sides of the torso so that we're not moving the blocks. And it doesn't have to be a huge sweeping movement, but we do want to keep the neck active. We want to lift into the back of the skull, and we don't want to feel our wrists at all. Little bend in that right elbow, especially if you know you're a hyperextender. And let's do 3 more, and then we're going to open that left side up, and we're going to keep it open. Just go to where it's comfortable for you to hold. Notice if there's any wrinkles creeping into those wrists. Reach the elbows and the wrists away from one another. And just breathing here. Head pushing into hand pushing into head. Let's go 3 more breaths on this side. And then bringing that arm down, bringing the hand down. Lengthen the two sides of the torso. Exhale to curl the spine, think angry kitty. Inhale, shoulders back, sit bones lift, gazing up. Exhale to curl the spine, think angry kitty. Inhale, shoulders back, sit bones lift, gazing up. And just back and forth with your spine. Really moving the leg bones and the arm bones away from one another. Keeping that spine nice and long like a stretched out accordion. And then stopping with a nice neutral spine, move your blocks, come into a puppy pose. Think about lengthening the two sides of the torso, the front, the back. And then staying in your puppy or making your way into a down dog, whatever you prefer. Put a little back bend in your lumbar. Find your fingers, find your palms. And then imagine there's blocks underneath your forearms and you're lifting your forearms up away from the earth. And as the forearms lift up away from the earth, the shoulders are pushing down to the earth. But the armpits continue to lift those shoulders up, like two bulls stacking and pushing into one another evenly. And then reach your hip flexors and your thighs back. As the backs of the knees move forward, the backs of the legs lift up to the sit bones. The calves are going to slide down to your heels. Now imagine you could go to your calves and you could visualize two long balloons inside your calves and blow your calves up a little bit, like the skin and the muscles behind the skin of your calves are expanding in all directions. Move the backs of the knees forward and push the kneecaps back. You can do this in a puppy, you can do this in a down dog, as we take 10 more breaths here. And when those 10 breaths are complete, you're going to come down. You're going to take any child's pose you like, as long as your forehead's resting on something and as long as you don't feel your knees. You could do this on your back. You could do this on your butt. But find a child's pose where we're stretching out that low back. And then once again, really connecting with your breath. With each inhale, the whole body is going to expand. And with each exhale, the whole body is going to contract. And so new moons are a time of setting intention, particularly the last new moon of the year is a great time to really reflect on the year, on the lessons you've learned, the mistakes you've made, the things you've overcome, and then plant some new seeds. So often what we say we prioritize and what we actually prioritize are two different things. So as we focus on our body from the inside, we focus on our breath. Let's think of some big intentions that we might like to plant for the year ahead. Maybe it's something we need to change. Maybe it's something we need to add. And I call those umbrella intentions, kind of like more of like a big goal, like I'm going to be healthy. And then each month you can break that big goal down into little mini mountains, little mini peaks that you can climb individually. But what is it that you truly need in the year ahead? What has this past year taught you that you're missing? And let's take 10 more breaths here. And when those 10 breaths are complete, hands underneath the shoulders to push ourselves up. We're gonna make our way into a comfortable seated position. So I'm gonna let you be the boss of that. If you wanna sit on your ankles like this, you could. If you wanna sit on height, you could. If you wanna sit cross-legged, you could, right? But you all know the rules with cross-legged, no wrinkles in the ankles, making sure that the knees are not higher than the hip flexors. If you wanted to sit in a squat with a straight back, you could, but you want to be able to move the arms and not be hunching. Some of us, if we don't have lots of props, could sit on the edge of our couch and find a cross-legged position here. But if I had a lot of height and I was sitting cross-legged, then I'd want to take something and put it between my ankles to remind myself that I don't want to wrinkle those ankles, okay? We never want to feel our knees, and we don't want to feel our backs. We can have a little bit of a stretch into our back, but we want it to be really mellow. So finding a position that's comfortable for you, and I'll let you know when we're halfway through so that you can change your position if you like. We want to be able to find the center of the sit bones. So as you're sitting in whatever position you like, double check that you don't have any wrinkles, make sure you're comfortable, hands on the thighs, shoulders back. We're going to sit on the backs of the sit bones, the center of the sit bones, the front of the sit bones, the middle of the sit bones, the back of the sit bones, the middle of the sit bones, the front of the sit bones. So if the sit bones were two sort of little sticks, you'd be going like this on those sticks, right? You're going so you're coming onto the front of the sticks, the center of the sticks, and the backs of the sticks. And if you can't do that, then you need to sit on more height. If you're unable to move your pelvis, then you want to give yourself more space so that you can move more freely. And then find the center of your sit bones. Think about that connection we found at the beginning of practice, where we're lengthening from the inner groin to the inner knee to outer knee draws back to outer trochanter's come to one another, outer trochanter's come back to the inner groin. So we're continuously finding that circle of energy from the groins to the knees, from the knees to the trochanters, from the trochanters to the groins. We're then going to interlace our fingers, right hand on top of left. We're going to flip the palms. We're going to do a couple shoulder push-ups here to find that extension, no tension. Good stuff. We're going to bend our elbows and we're going to straighten our arms. We're going to bend our elbows and we're going to straighten our arms. And just finding that connection. A couple things we're looking for here is that the elbows, the wrists, and the shoulders remain level, right? I don't want one elbow going high, one elbow going low, but I want to find that balance of lifting the elbows up, pushing the elbows down. So that's connection number one. Obviously, we don't want the shoulders to be affected by this movement, so we want to keep that extension, no tension, where we could shoulder check, we could say yes, we could say no, yada, 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 right? Third thing I want you to be aware of is this pinky finger. So as we do this, especially as we come over the head, the pinky finger tends to want to do that. So really commit to the pinky fingers remaining connected. The next time we straighten, we're going to hold straight. We're going to relax the shoulders away from the ears. We're going to lift the armpits up. Remember what it was like when we were taking the arm bones off the blocks and the thighs off the blocks? Find that same connection. As if the arms were trying to go up, but they weren't going anywhere, and the thighs were trying to go down, but they're not going anywhere. Good. Lengthen the two sides of the torso. Really find your breath here. Remember, we're never allowed to feel our knees. We can have a little bit of a hip and a back stretch here, but we want it to be comfortable. And then from here, we're going to bend the elbows. We're going to bring the hands to the top of the head without changing our ribs and without coming onto the backs of the sit bones. Find the center of the sit bones, pull the elbows apart, and do the same thing here. It's not about straightening your arms. We want to try and keep the hands level if we can. If we had an extra block there and we wanted to add a block on, we could. And so here, again, elbows aren't moving forward or back. They're just going straight out to the side, straight down. Trying to keep those pinky fingers connected. And then next time we straighten or straighten-ish the arms, wherever we can get to, we just hang out, we close our eyes, we stay right on the center of the sit bones. We think about lengthening the two sides of the torso, right, left, front, back, evenly, so that we're not bulging or shortening on one side or the other. Think about the hands lifting up, think about the butt rooting down, and then just see if you can kind of move your ribs between those 2 points, almost like you're hula hooping in the rib cage. You want to feel our knees. Change direction with your circles. Maybe this is causing you to roll onto the back sides of the sit bones, and that's fine, but stay fairly centered. And then stopping with those circles, lift the hands up. Maybe you can do circles with your hands. Try not to lose the pinkies. Some of us can do bigger circles. Try not to turtleneck your neck. Change direction with the circles. Really think about those elbows moving away from one another. Think about the spine and the rib cage not being affected by what the elbows and the wrists are doing. And then stopping with those circles, bring it up. If you're holding a block, ditch the block and then bring your hands back up. Think about pulling the wrists apart. Think about pulling the elbows apart. Beautiful. We're then going to release the fingers, but keep the shape of the hands, and we're going to bring those hands down halfway. Good. We're pulling the fingers to us. We're pushing the palms away. Now visualize shopping bags on your elbows, and those shopping bag handles are pulling down on the elbow creases to create a little bit of a bend in the elbows, but the cap is lifting up onto those shopping bags. And just let your right ear come down. If at any point you need to drop your arms, drop your arms. And then rotate your chin towards that shoulder. Chin comes back up to center. Let the opposite ear come down. No rotation. And then let your chin come down. Chin comes back up to center. Fingers still pointing up towards the sky. See if you could bend your elbows to a cactus or a 90-degree angle with your palms level with the ceiling. And then see if you can bend more without moving the upper arm bones to bring your hands towards your face. Maybe the elbows lift, but you're still holding on to your head. So for some of us, the fingers are going to be able to point down. For some of us, it's going to be easier to rotate the fingers back and just hold the sides of our head with our fingers pointing towards the wall behind us. Good. Some of us, it might be fingers up, but ideally it's fingers back or fingers down. So it's either fingers back or fingers down. And then we're going to lift the elbows up. We're going to push the elbows forward. We're going to push the elbows back. Now really think about this torso being even on all the sides, right? So you got 4 sides, but then you got all the sides and diagonals in between. So you want this torso to be nice and long. And then we're just going to move the elbows forward and back a little bit just to see what that feels like. Good. And then we're not going to move the elbows. We're going to have the elbows solid, right? Just like we had them before. And then we're going to twist at the torso without the shoulders really moving. Almost like we're spinning a martini glass by the stem, and the stem is the spine. See if you can inhale as you go one way. See if you can exhale as you go the other way. And then go to the right, hold, breathe. Again, not moving at the elbows or the shoulders, just at the waist. Twist back to center, arms don't change. Twist the other way. Beautiful. Hold and breathe. Squeeze your hand. Reach with your elbows. And back to center. Release. Let the hands come down. Let the palms face up. Shoulders relax. Close your eyes. Big, beautiful breaths. With each inhale, feel the whole body expanding. And with each exhale, feel the whole body gently contracting. Just observe if you're still in the center of your sit bones. And so if you're sitting on your shins, you're going to come through tabletop position to open up the backs of the legs. If you're sitting in a cross-legged position, we lift the outer knees to uncross